You've seen them, right? Those ads for prescription drugs. They pop up, and suddenly you're feeling this wave of hope, a feeling that, a better, healthier life is just one pill away. Well, today, we're going to peel back the curtain on that feeling and dive into the multi-billion-dollar world of pharmaceutical advertising. Oh, yeah, you know the vibe. You've got people laughing, they're dancing, they're living their absolute best lives, all with this super uplifting music in the background. The message is always crystal clear. Transformation is possible. And man, is it powerful. It's emotional, and it's incredibly persuasive. So is it just about the medication, or is there something more going on? We're going to break down the strategies, the loopholes, and the very real consequences of this whole industry. We're going to show you exactly what's hiding in plain sight. So where does all this influence even come from? Well, to get that, you've got to follow the money. And let me tell you, there is a lot of it. This isn't just about a couple of commercials. We're talking about a massive industry-shaping force. Okay, get ready for this number. In 2020 alone, drug companies in the US spent nearly $6.6 billion on what they call direct-to-consumer advertising. To put that in perspective, that is more than the entire GDP of some countries. Wild. So what happened? Why the explosion? Well, it all goes back to a single regulatory change. Ad spending shot up by almost 800% after the FDA relaxed its rules back in 1997. It was literally like opening the floodgates, and it totally changed how we all talk and even think about medicine. And hey, don't just take my word for it. That's a quote from the Journal of the American Medical Association. Actual experts are framing this as a public health issue, not just a business practice. So the main takeaway here is all this spending, it has very real-world effects. Now let's get into a really specific tactic, just to see how this all works. We're going to look at how these ads don't just sell a product. They sell a very specific and sometimes pretty skewed picture of who actually gets sick. Just take a look at this. It's a huge difference. When researchers analyzed antidepressant ads, they found that a staggering 82% of them featured women as the main character, and men, just about 10%. I mean, think about the message that sends. And here's the kicker. This isn't just reflecting reality. Now, it's true that depression is diagnosed more in women, but the rate you'd expect based on the data is around 58%. The ads overshoot that by a massive margin. This shows it's a clear strategy, right? They're targeting a specific demographic. So why does this matter? What's the big deal? Well, by constantly showing depression with a female face, these ads can actually make the stigma for men even worse, maybe preventing them from seeking help. This is especially true because male depression can look different. You might see symptoms like anger or aggression, things these ads pretty much never show. Okay, so that's the old school TD world, but the game is changing fast. Let's move to the new frontier, social media. This is where the rules are way looser and the strategies are even more clever. Researchers looked at ads for those super popular weight loss drugs on places like Facebook and found this four-part formula. First, they build trust by talking about health and safety. Then they offer convenience with consultation and support. Then they knock down any barriers with ease and affordability. And then, for the final punch, they promise this amazing emotional and psychological transformation. It's the whole shebang. And a huge part of this new playbook is the patient influencer. Now, these aren't your typical celebrities. They're real people with real health conditions building real trust online. And you can bet the drug companies have noticed. They're partnering up to promote products in a way that feels way more authentic and personal. And this quote right here, it gets to the very heart of their power. So many of these patient influencers start because they see a gap in the information out there. They feel like they aren't being represented, so they create content for their own community. And that authentic drive is what makes them so compelling, and for brands, so valuable. But, and this is a big but, there's a problem. On social media, that whole idea of fair balance, giving equal time to risks and benefits, it often just vanishes. One review found that while 100% of pharma posts talked up the benefits, only a third even bothered to mention any potential harms. Yikes. So with all these issues floating around, from skewed gender portrayals to totally unbalanced info online, you have to ask, where are the regulators? What is the FDA doing? Well, for a long time, the answer was not much. But that's starting to change. I mean, this timeline tells a pretty dramatic story. In the late 90s, the FDA was sending hundreds of these enforcement letters a year to companies with sketchy ads. By 2024, that number had dropped to zero, a big fat zero. But look now, it seems there's been a complete reversal, and the agency is on track to issue around 100 letters in 2025. It looks like a major crackdown is coming. A key thing they're targeting is this loophole, the adequate provision rule. It's the whole reason you hear that super fast voiceover at the end of a commercial listing a few scary side effects while telling you to go to a website. The definition of what counts as a major risk is so vague that companies can get away with burying the important stuff. One expert even called it a scavenger hunt for safety info. The bottom line is consumer advocates are demanding action. They're basically saying that without someone enforcing the rules, patients are just left vulnerable to marketing that puts profits way ahead of safety. So with this whole complicated world of influence and regulation, what are we supposed to do? How can we protect ourselves? Well, this last part is all about giving you the tools you need to see these ads with clear eyes. So here are 4 simple things to keep in your toolkit. First, listen for that fair balance we talked about. Are they mumbling the risks really fast at the end? Second, do your best to separate the emotional promise from the actual cold, hard information. Third, and this is huge for online stuff, learn to tell the difference between a personal story and real medical advice. And finally, the easiest one to remember, their goal is to sell a product, period. And that's really the question to take with you. Because being an informed patient isn't just about knowing about treatments. It's about understanding all the powerful forces that are out there trying to shape your decisions. Thanks so much for digging into this with me.
And that's a wrap on this episode of MedDecode. I really appreciate you joining me today. If something we talked about sparked your interest, or if there's a medical term that's been bugging you, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, be a pal and share it with a friend. We'll catch you on the next one.